Welcome everyone, this is Clone Alpha. Today I have the third Swiss round from IDC 26. I am playing my Water Darkness Aggro deck, and Apex Predator is playing a Light Darkness Nature control list, where he tries to build a board with Solar Grass and finish the opponent in one go. I have the turn 2 Spin Slicer, so that is quite a powerful curve for me. Not many things can deal with Spin Slicer starting from turn 2. He does get to deploy a blocker to intercept my Spin Slicer, but it won't be enough yet because my Spin Slicer can still run over it. I follow it up with an Aqua Hulkus, and the next turn I can hopefully deploy Lucky Ball. He is thinking if he wants to block, but I don't think I would do it if I were him. And he blocks, which I think is wrong, because he also plays Juliana in his deck, and when Paloalisis and Juliana are on the field, Juliana is 5000 power, and this is important because you want to be able to contest the Spin Slicer. Playing Locomotiver, sniping my Paladin, which wasn't really needed at this moment. Here I'm going to play an Aqua Hulkus instead, because Lucky Ball is not active yet. Going for 2 more shields. He gets a Terror Pit, so at least he gets to get rid of my Spin Slicer at this point, which is good for him. Playing Skysword here gives him a bit more safety against me, and also helps to stabilize him for next turn and for the long term. Here I'm charging the Spiral Gate and playing Lucky Ball. I draw into an Aqua Guard, so I can also play this to intercept the Skysword if he plans to attack my Aqua Hulkus. Here I'm going for 2 more shields. He gets a Dimension Gate, so he gets Juliana from his deck with Dimension Gate. And he's left on 1 shield, while I have 3 creatures. Here he swaps Skysword in and out, but this is a mistake. I would have instead tapped Skysword instead of Billix and swap out the Locomotiver to have another 2000 power body on board. This would have helped him to get rid of at least one of my Aqua Hulkus. So I think that was a mistake. Here I summon Giga Balza, sniping Juliana, which is pretty good for me. I also summon Melia instead of Duel Spider because it can go through blockers. He gets a Locomotiver, which doesn't really do much here. And I'm taking out his last 3 shields. This game is pretty much over at this point. I don't think there's much he can do. He is playing Logic Cube to search Soul Swap. And again, same mistake. I would have tapped Skysword instead of Billix to swap out a Locomotiver and get a more powerful body on board. Not that it matters too much at this point, but still. If you can get a stronger body on board for no cost, you should probably do it. Topping up Spin Slicer so I can have even more attackers on board to ensure my victory. That's a terror pit, not enough to save him, so that's game. That concludes game 1, and we're going to game 2. He is going first this time, which is very helpful for him. He will essentially have an extra turn to deal with my pressure. No Spin Slicer this time, but Melnia is almost as good against his deck, which plays like 7 or 8 blockers. Here I'm thinking if I wanna keep Lucky Ball, but I think I will just charge it because I am not likely to get the effect off on turn 4. So I just summon Hulkus instead and go in for the first shield. Here the Locomotiver snipes a card which I didn't really need, so that's good for me. This allows me to summon Melnia and also Spin Slicer at the same time. So I'm charging the Hulkus, summoning the Melnia, and here I'm going to evolve Aqua Hulkus into Spin Slicer because the Aqua Hulkus cannot go past Juliana, and the Aqua Guard can serve a purpose by standing in the way of Locomotiver from trading into Melnia. Unfortunately for me, he gets a Holio here, which means he can now trade his Locomotiver into one of my Melnias. He doesn't appear to have Sky Sword, so instead he goes for Bronzam Tribe and Paleolithis, which puts the Juliana at 5000 power, which could contest my Spin Slicer. Here I would trade Locomotiver into one of my Melnias. Yes, that's what it does. And leave the Juliana alone to contest Spin Slicer, but for some reason he attacks my Aqua Guard. I am not sure what he's thinking here. Aqua Guard wasn't really doing much here, and Juliana could have traded with Spin Slicer. But now I can take advantage of this and attack with both Spin Slicers. And again, I'm not sure why you block with Paleolithis when you want to keep your Juliana at 5000 power. And I even type in the chat that it's probably not a good idea to make your Juliana weaker. Sky Sword is quite good here. More mana and more shields is always good against an aggressive deck. But he doesn't have a follow-up. So now it's an Aqua Hulkus and I pressure his last two shields with Spin Slicer again. Gets Dimension Gate, searches for Sky Sword. And by the way, when the opponent searches a creature with, or a spell with his cards, or before he summons or taps mana, he usually thinks a long time, but I edit that part out because no one wants to sit through that. So we have a Sky Sword, followed by a Billix, followed by a Logic Cube. Billix getting back the Logic Cube, which he used to search Soul Swap for next turn. Soul Swap will allow him to spam Sky Sword even more. Here I summon Paladin. I evolve it into one of the Spin Slicer, which unfortunately bounces my other Spin Slicer, but I can just summon it back and attack with it in the same turn. Unfortunately for me, he gets Soul Swap out of shields when I went for game. So this will either delay my victory or stabilize him long enough to win game 2. Lost Soul to get rid of my speed attacker from hand. And he will probably follow it up with a Soul Swap to get another shield. And yeah, for some reason I thought he had 9 mana, but then I counted again and yeah, he has 10 mana for Lost Soul and Soul Swap. So he gets another shield to keep him alive, and he will trade his Sky Sword into my Aqua Hulkus. Aqua Hulkus is dead. Now I'm still maintaining a good pressure. I top deck Giga Balza and I snipe Fal-Iga from his hand, which is not bad because that means he can't recycle swap. Unfortunately for me, he gets a second Soul Swap in the last shield. So that's even more shields and even more mana. Now he is setting up his Mistrias. Follows it up with Paleolithis and Juliana. So now Juliana is 5000 power and can contest my Paladin. Another Giga Balza, let's see where we snipe this time, and we take out a Billix, which is another wonderful snipe because he cannot get back Therapy to remove my Paladin. Now there is no hope for my Paladin to go through because Juliana is at 7000 power. Unless I top deck another Paladin to evolve him again and bounce all the blockers. And now here comes the Cryptic Totem. he's starting to go on the offensive now that he has stabilized a bit. And he deploys his 4th copy of Soul Swap already, I believe, so that's shield number 11. Here I am going to bounce his Cryptic Totem to delay him a bit. I was too afraid to bounce my own Paladin. I was afraid of discard, but I still think it would have been worth the risk. So now down comes the Cryptic Totem. And he also has a removal for my Paladin. Which I think spells GG for me. Unfortunately, without a bait, Spin Slicer is a dead top deck, so I just pass. And down comes Fighter Duel Fang, which is pretty much victory for him. He gets to break all shields with the double breakers and finish me off. So 1-1, we're going into the final game. This looks like a really good hand again. I get the Aqua Guard into Spin Slicer curve when I go first again, which is really nice. Love to see this curve when I play this deck. And I even get the Aqua Hulkus for turn 3. I'm thinking between Spiral Gate and Giga Balsa, but I think I will charge Spiral Gate because it cannot remove Juliana anyway, and Spin Slicer can run over Juliana anyway. Spin Slicer turn 2 when you go first is a really nice feeling. To start beating down the opponent with 5000 creatures when he's only on 1 mana. Okay, so sending Aqua Hulkus and going for the second shield. Hopefully next turn I can summon 2 creatures. If I top deck a Darkness Color. And we see the Paleolysis, which at least stops my Aqua Hulkus from attacking. For some reason I charge Propeller Mutant. I think this was a brain fart. I should have definitely charged Giga Balsa, summon Melia and Propeller Mutant. And then I even realized I made a mistake, so I asked him to wait, but then I have to recognize that I made a mistake and I have to own up to it. Fortunately, I can summon 2 creatures this turn as I top deck a Jewel Spider. I had to own up to my mistake because last round against Marquito, I attacked into a Spin Slicer that I forgot was a blocker. So I told myself I will have to own up to my mistakes now. Now that's 2 Paleolysis on field. That stops most of my creatures, but the Melia can still go through. I can't push for game yet because it's 2 blockers and 1 shield against 3 creatures that can attack. So I just pass and see what he does. Down comes Sky Sword. Which is still not enough to save him. I can still go for game here, especially since I top deck a Spiral Gate, I can bounce one of the blockers. I'm pushing for shield number 5. Which is a soul swap, so he gets to have another shield. And here I can go for game. I would attack with Duel Spider first, then Giga Balza and then the Aqua Hulkus. But for some reason I don't do it, which is a bit risky. I would have definitely gone for game at this point. There's no reason not to. If you can go for game as an aggro deck, you should probably do it, otherwise you just give your opponent more time to stabilize and remove your stuff. And yeah, this is what I mean, another blocker and another shield. But now, this turn I'm definitely going for game, I'm not gonna wait any longer. So I'm pushing with Melia. Melia is leading the charge because he can just whisk through the blockers. Then I'm going with Propeller to force a discard. But he lets it go through because he doesn't want to lose a card in hand. I'm going with Jewel Spider now to get extra card from the shield. He blocks this one, so I'm getting something from shield. And now I'm just going to push for game. Now the last 2 Aqua Hulkus will break the last shield and finish him off, and that's game 3 from round 3 from IDC 26.